welcome to the Mother's Day launch of Old Folks Cooking, the intersection of food, drink, and culture. And I am delighted that you're here with us to talk about your mother's influence on your cooking career.
Oh my God. It's a blessing for me to be here too. And if there was such a word in my vocabulary back in the day, my mom was my first mentor.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is so wonderful to hear because so many people just don't, particularly people have gone on to be professionals like you, a
Mhm.
worldwide pastry chef and administrator. Um, it's fantastic to hear you pay tribute to your mother.
It's the least I can do to honor all the things that she did for us. I have four siblings, or three siblings, excuse me, growing up and knowing how much my mom was in that kitchen cooking. If she wasn't in the kitchen, then she's in that garden. So I had a full spectrum of food from the farm to the table, basically, and my mother, how she cooked and
And
baked.
just that whole being from farm to table, I also grew up with farmers. Basically, they had moved to the city, but they kept the farm. And you we didn't have processed food. You canned and preserved the foods all summer. We were working to preserve food for the winter.
Yeah, we would spend our weekends, and much as we might have hated to do it, but we would be in that car driving to different. So I grew up in the Chicago area, and we would take those weekend trips, and we would be going to Wisconsin, Indiana, Michigan, Southern Illinois, picking our own fruits and vegetables, and coming home and then spending the rest of the weekend canning, freezing, parboiling, all that, and stocking up our freezer.
That is exactly the life that I lived, and we're the better for it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the appreciation of fresh food or fresh coming out your freezer, things that you know that you did it, you made, and it's going to be better than what you can buy now, 10 times better. And the cost of it all, the economy of it all, it's just you can't compare it. You just
You,
can't.
you definitely can't compare it, and you can't compare the taste. And that
Mm-mm.
is one thing that I am so adamant about, particularly influencing the younger generations in the culinary field, that they don't really fully understand what the original tastes were.
Definitely, definitely.
That is something that we from the older generations must help to preserve these recipes and the taste that were that were really original with these dishes. So, what was your mother's favorite thing to make?
So with the baking part of it, I had to narrow down to two, and one I did today, but the other one would have been that cat head biscuit. And so I also
Oh, oh my God!
I know. I also have to understand my mother. I never saw, and my siblings confirmed that they didn't either, because I'm number three out of the four. That maybe she had it, and I just didn't see it as we were growing up. That she didn't have recipe books. My mother had it in her head,
You
and
know,
so that
absolutely,
she never
absolutely.
had the book. I never saw any. We had a whole bunch of books in our house. We had the encyclopedias back in the day. We had all
Right.
kinds of, geology and one book for each one of the stars and the moons. We had all that in our house growing up. We had a piano. We had all. She's a firm believer in education, but my mama did not have a cookbook.
No, and my mother didn't either.
Mm-mm.
Although there were recipes written down in the Bible, in the family
No,
Bible,
not in
and
her Bible. Mm-mm.
and I got to tell, well, in our family Bible, there were recipes in the back written down, and
Wow.
I just remember that. I remember my father's aunt, my great aunt Laura, who cooked at the hotel in Washington D.C., the Willard Hotel,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, she was making a mushroom stew one day, and I was so paying so much attention. And I was looking right in her face, and she said, stop looking in my mouth. Look at what I'm doing.
Yeah.
So sharp. I was just because she was so gentle with me and everything, and very nice. She was like, "Look at what I'm doing because that's trust what you see, not what you hear." And
Yeah.
that I've kept all my life. And she didn't write down recipes either, but you remember what she did. Beat the cake 80 times, not 83 or 84, 80, and it will turn out this way. And that's a treasure. That's a treasure. And I'm so glad we had that real authentic cooking school, basically.
That's true. That's true.
You know,
And that she knew how to cook.
yeah,
'Cause everybody's mom and dad did not know how to cook in the kitchen. And so
this is this
my
is
mother
very
had two siblings, and we always thought that our mother was the best one out of her siblings who cooked, and we felt lucky about that. So I realized that growing up, that everybody's mama didn't cook like my mama did.
oh, absolutely. Or be as clean as your mother was.
Okay,
Uh,
that part. When you have four kids or two, that you clean.
yeah, absolutely. I remember at a church social, I had piled up my plate with all of this stuff, and my mother looked at me and with that stare, and she said
Mhm.
very gently, "Did I give you that?"
Ah,
And she took the plate away and she gave it to this deacon. She said, "Deacon Williams, here, here you go." And it was his wife that had prepared all of that, but she was known for having a dirty kitchen.
mhm.
And so I was like, "Oh, whoa, 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 you're giving away." And she was like, "You eat what I give you."
Ooh-wee. Ain't anybody's food. You knew that then. Okay. Okay.
That was the polite way to say, "Your wife has a dirty kitchen. You're used to eating it. So here you go."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Wow.
I miss them so much because there was as we were preparing all of this shucking and peeling and I remember being admonished for you're giving all of my peaches to the pigs.
Mm.
You gotta peel it very thinly and sharpen that knife again. And all those lessons learned, um, we need to keep sharing them with newer generations. And I am thrilled that you're able to join me on this debut launch of Old Folks Cooking. And I hope that you will come back again and again to help preserve and share these recipes and more importantly share these digital stories.
Oh, it would be my honor. I mean, I'm so excited. What a great idea. And I mean, we all have got childhood memories. We all have got mom, dads, whatever, best recipes, the things that we remember about the food when the family would get together. My mom and one of her childhood friends and their family, we would always at their house or our house for Christmas or Thanksgiving or New Year's Day, and just the food. But her most request was always if those Christmas, Mother's Day, Easter, New Year's Day was always the caramel cake. And
Oh,
my mother she would cook everything, and we would spend days, and I mean days, chopping up the celery, peppers, onions, getting stuff ready for the dressing, getting stuff ready for mac and cheese. But
right.
it was no, it wasn't just collard greens. My mother would mix greens all day long. So mustard and turnips, and roasting the turnips and boiling this, and we were just doing stuff all day
Goodness,
long in the kitchen.
I chef, I am salivating.
And so, just growing up and knowing teaching yourself basically, she taught us how to prepare, how to get things together. So my first organizational skills of prep and the work in the kitchen came from my mother and working in the kitchen with her for those days on end, getting ready to feed 15, 20 people very well at a nicely set table.
Oh, absolutely. That is, and to carry it to an international arena where you've been
Mhm.
honored so many times for your pastries and your leadership. Um, it's a blessing and an honor to your mother. What was her full name?
Ellen Hall Brock. She was born and raised in, I was told to pronounce it Hayti, Missouri. But when I was born growing up, we went to go visit our grandmother, her mother. It was in Cape Girardeau, Missouri, which is North Missouri. So right across the Mississippi River
Oh,
from Illinois.
that is wonderful. Well, Miss Ellen, happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day, Mom. This will be the second Mother's Day. I switched to the white flower. She passed almost 2 years ago in October.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to tasting that caramel cake, and we're gonna have that recipe. We're gonna have that recipe, and folks can make that caramel cake from Miss Ellen Brock.
Thank you. It was something, I had to go back and forth and try to remember it. I have personally never made a caramel cake in my profession because I didn't think I could live up to my mother's caramel cake. And so I made that effort. I would shy away from it. And people, of course, want a caramel something. I would make a caramel sauce, of course, or a caramel filling for a truffle or something like that. But I never made a caramel cake because I couldn't figure out in my head how to get her icing the way she did it. And so through playing in the kitchen the last few days, this is the best I can come up with. It. The texture looked right, the consistency of it, the icing looked right, and just going through the muscle memory in the head of how I was making it when I was helping her make that food, make that icing. This was the best one I could come up with. And even
Well,
still, the pastry chef came out of me a little bit where I did still boil a can of condensed milk and caramelize it. And I added
okay,
half of that can, just got one a little bit more caramel flavor, and I still did do that, but my mother would never do that. And I know she wasn't caramelizing sugar back in the day. I never saw that. I would have been amazed. So I
right.
know it was, I do remember standing at that stove with a double boiler, stirring and stirring for what seemed like forever to get that color, that consistency just right.
Yes. Well, that muscle memory, it just came from love. And I
Mhm.
am so honored that you could share that with us. So um, I'm just warmed. I feel like I've met Miss Ellen myself.
Well, she was definitely a lover of food. Um, and like I said, from growing it in the ground, she had a green thumb. To us going to the farms and orchards and picking our own, making our own, and she also knew how to. Because her sister didn't do that; she did that. The pickling, the canning, the parboiling. My mother did that, not her sisters. And so we ate very well, be it fresh blueberries, blueberry sauce, blueberry pancakes on the weekends, corn on the cob all year round.
Oh my goodness.
The
Yeah,
first time going to see apples and making and getting apple butter and apple cider, fresh pressed and freshly made. Just seeing that, experiencing that, tasting that, knowing what it tastes like now, like ugh.
yeah, and I literally took apple butter biscuit sandwiches to school for lunch. Okay.
Wow, wow. Apple
So
butter,
yeah,
that's
apple
doing
butter
something.
biscuits.
That's doing something. Back in the day when you can walk around neighborhoods, just go to somebody's yard and just pull up the rhubarb, and we'd be walking around the neighborhood just chewing on rhubarb, just like it was celery or something. Just that's what we
No,
did in summertime.
I know. And sugar cane. Lord, we could talk forever. Because what what a wonderful childhood that you and I both shared.
Yeah,
And
it was a blessing to grow up to have the exposure to the farming, to the gathering of food, to the preserving of food, to the cooking of good food and enjoying good food. It was a joy. I have to look back at it now and just can't say anything else but
well, I am hoping that both you and I, who've been in touch with lots of young chefs coming, we continue to with great, um, wonderful opportunity.
it would be for me paying it forward to help teach and bring up younger culinarians into this profession, so they can experience pieces, parts, if not all, of what it is that I had growing up, to pour into them what was poured into me.
Yes, and it is. is a total blessing. And thank you again for being able to join me on this episode of Old Folks Cooking.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been my pleasure. And thinking about my mom on this holiday weekends, especially on and trying to remember her cake. And I hope I got it right, Mom, because this is for you.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure you. Thank you again, Chef Kimberly Brock. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashbel. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye bye.